In this lecture, I want to have a look at what the church can possibly mean as a caring community. This again is going to depend on the location where you live. So we think about the church. God gave leaders to the church to shepherd, protect, comfort, teach, guide, warn, and admonish them. The church leaders embody the protective care of the Lord to hurting people. Now, this lecture that I'm talking about is based a lot on the work of Jeremy Pierre, Chris Moles, and some of my own books as well. So church leaders embody the protective care of the Lord to hurting people. Peter's threefold contrast shows how easily that responsibility can be misused. If you look at 1 Peter chapter 5, he says, care is not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you. It's not for shameful gain, but to be done eagerly. And if not to be domineering over those in their charge, but to be examples to the flock. So it's a contrast here. They're not, the wrong way would be under compulsion, for shameful gain, and to domineer. And Peter calls them to do willingly, eagerly, and by being examples to the flock. In a previous lesson, we've looked at spiritual abuse. So in the church, power is never exercised for the gain of the one who possesses it, or in a family or anywhere as a Christian, but for the gain of those who don't. So if you have a position of authority or power, it's there to benefit those under you. You're called to care for them and help them grow and provide love and care. So authority is exercised at the cost to the one in authority. It's a servanthood. You're serving other people. So people who live under abuse experience the exact opposite. The abuser uses their greater influence, greater physical strength, earning potential, social connectedness or otherwise to gain from those with less. And this is evil. That's completely against authority as God designed it. And evil authority is not compatible with no authority, but with godly authority. So how can we care for the victim? Now, what I'm about to say, as I said, it largely based on the works of Jeremy Pierre and Chris Moles. What I want you to do is be informed. Speak to your local authorities. Find out what the laws are in your area. Because what I'm about to say might not be applicable where you live. So please speak to people who understand abuse, who know what the situation is in your culture and in your local area, what the laws are. So these are just suggestions, but I'm leaving it at that level. Suggestions. Please talk to people who understand abuse and live in your area, and talk to the relevant authorities about what the laws are in your area as well. So here we go. This is suggestions. You start with the person being abused instead of the abuser, because the one who approaches you for help is almost always the person being abused or a friend on their behalf. And you want to seek as far as you can for the safety of the person being abused, not the correction of the abuser, as much as you can. So approaching the abuser could set off a chain reaction that comes down hard on the spouse under his influence. In the UK where I'm from, there's something called safeguarding, and churches have safeguarding policies, and if they hear about abuse, specific types of abuse, they're supposed to report it. Now, I've been talking about emotional abuse, and this is different, and the laws are different about emotional abuse and domestic violence. This makes it complicated. But when I've taught there in the past about abuse, there's been some misunderstanding by people in churches about safeguarding. And they've thought as soon as you think there might be abuse, you have to report it. And I'm like, whoa. Because that could make it more, the abuser could just punish and take it out on the abuse victim. And how they had understood this, when I consulted a lawyer and a social worker, these people had misunderstood what safeguarding laws were. So that's why, and going back to what I'm saying, we really need to get well informed about what the laws are, what we can and can't do as a church in your local area. These people thought they understood. They thought they were doing what was right before the law, thought they were being helpful, but they would have caused great harm. So that's what I'm saying. Approaching the abuser could set off a chain reaction. that comes down hard on the spouse under his influence. So regarding the accused spouse, not engage him too early in the process. Do not act before the abused spouse has developed a safety plan or apart from her explicit advice and consent. So not to be well-intentioned and go in there with all guns blazing, so to speak. No, you need to be thoughtful, prayerful, consult with the authorities, and have a well thought out, thoroughly prayed through approach to handling the situation. You should address the abusive spouse only when the potential victim is ready for the confrontation. Otherwise, it would be devastating for them because it cause tremendous harm. So confronting the abuser, the content of the personal accountability plan will vary, but usually includes no abuse. So 0 tolerance of future abuse, accountability to have people, 3 or 4 people the abuser is accountable to. They're already involved in their life. You get individual counselling, pastoral counselling to help the abuser process what he hears from a biblical framework. Again, this is something else. Check where you are locally, if this is possible where you are, what's appropriate where you are. Even as I say this, where I live in Belgium, our churches are so small, this would be extremely difficult to do. If you live somewhere with larger churches, it'd be more doable. But this is a suggestion to get you thinking, how could we possibly apply this? What could this look like in our situation? Well, consulting people for advice about what's appropriate where you live. Families will have different perspective of the couple specifically. So the victim is also a sister, daughter, cousin. The family know her as pleasant or annoying, respectable or gossipy. Family members could have all sorts of different opinions about one another. If they're inclined toward her relationally, they're more prone to believe her and to respond by protecting and doing something about it. If they're inclined against her relationally, they'll probably be more skeptical and less decisive in their actions. A lot of the time, abusive people have a better reputation in their family, and it could be hard for family members, church members, to believe they're capable of the cruelty they're accused of. So the family of the abuse victim often experiences extreme anger at the abuser, leading them to respond in harmful ways. I got a friend who's years on from when their daughter was left in an abusive marriage. She was so angry at the abuser, but also at other people for not doing anything, and broke relationships through that. Unfortunately, wasn't dealt with well at all, and years later still struggling with that anger. They could experience disillusionment about their own lack of control, leading them to respond in harmful ways. And they'll experience guilt for failing to perceive, believe, or predict what was going on behind closed doors, and leading them to respond in harmful ways. Just like I said, this friend of mine was so angry, she didn't see it, so hurt, and then taking it out on other people. They often experience apprehension about how to discuss what happened with their hurting loved one, leading to unhelpful interactions. So here's some thoughts about how the church can be involved as well. Public ministry of the word. So in your teaching, the content of teaching about who people are as made in the image of God, what it means to be male and female, and by that I mean both being called to Christ-likeness, not an overemphasis on certain aspects of teaching that can sometimes occur. What does it mean to be loving and caring towards each other? What are the responsibilities of the husband and the wife from both parties to be godly and caring and loving? That it's always wrong to manipulate and domineer. Teaching about heart issues that we discussed in an earlier lecture, always wrong to domineer and manipulate what the family roles are. The role of a husband is not king in the castle. The role of the husband is to provide love and care for the family. Submission is not unthinkingly going along with things. It's going along with that love and care. And to provide, if possible, pre and marriage counselling. So before couples get married, to explain these things to them. How do you deal with your heart? Who are you as a human being? Who are you renewed in the image of God? How do you resolve problems biblically? What is communication? Um, how do you, what are the relational dynamics? How do you resolve conflict? How do you make agreements? How do you come to decisions? How do you love and care for each other? How are you going to raise the kids? These are all very important aspects to include. These are just some suggestions about how the church can, as a community, be intentional about building an environment where abuse is known as something that's not acceptable, it's completely wrong, and how to care for each other in the church and how to build families that honour the Lord. So it's just a starting point to think through, and encourage you to take it further. Take these things I've been talking about, find out what help is available for you in your area, what authorities are there, what structures are there to help abuse victims, what the laws are in your area, in your culture, and then to think this through. How can we help? How can we as a church provide support for the abuser and the abused?